You may inquire.
Can you please state your name?
Rachel Hunt.
And ma'am, I want to draw your attention to June of 2017. Where were you employed?
Essential Spa.
And you may need to speak up or get a little closer to that mic if you could.
Essential Spa.
And what is it you did at the Essentia Spa?
I was an esthetician.
And what does that mean?
I was doing skincare, body services.
And who is it that hired you to work there?
Lynlee Renick.
And do you see her in court today?
Yes.
Where's she at?
Okay.
How is it that you met Ms. Renick?
A friend of mine told me that the spa was hiring, and she told me I should go check with her about a job.
And so you went, well, I got interviewed and got hired, I guess?
Yes.
When did you start working there?
I don't remember the exact date, honestly.
That's okay. In relationship to the June date we're talking about, we're talking a few weeks, few months?
A few months.
And during this time frame in June, where was it that you were staying and who were you staying with?
I was staying with Ashley Shaw in Columbia.
And you two worked together?
Yes.
Now, at some point leading up to June 8th of 2017, you were aware what happened on that day, or not?
Yes, sir.
That's what happened on that date.
Ben was murdered.
Prior to that date, did you wind up receiving some information from someone that his life had already been attempted to be murdered prior to that?
Yes, I did.
And who is it that you first found that out from?
Ashley Shaw.
And when is it that you found out from Ashley Shaw that someone had already attempted to kill Ben in relationship to the June date?
A few weeks, I would say.
I'm sorry?
I would say a few weeks.
Okay, so a few weeks before that.
Yes.
And do you know whether the attempt had already been made or was in the planning stage, according to what you learned from Ashley Shaw?
It had already been done.
And what did you learn from Ashley about that?
That it didn't work.
Well, did she tell you how or what was done to attempt to kill Ben?
They were giving him, he was given pills.
And when you said they, who is they?
Ashley and Lynlee.
And where was this conversation that the two of you had? Where did that take place at?
I believe that was at her home, or where we were staying.
Where you guys were staying? And would there have been anybody present besides the two of you?
No.
After learning that she and Lynlee had tried to kill Ben, what was your reaction?
I was shocked, and I told them I didn't want to be a part of anything.
You told me you didn't want to be a part of it?
Yes.
Did you ask why?
No.
Were you ever told why?
Lynlee didn't think that she would get the kids if she tried to divorce Ben.
Okay, and well, my question was, were you ever told why? Is the answer yes?
Yes.
Who told you why?
I believe it was probably Ashley and Lynlee at some point or other.
Ultimately, you had conversations with both of them about what was going to take place on June 8th of 2017.
Yes.
And let's start with Lynlee. What did she tell you about what was going to take place on that date?
She said that she was going to take a gun. Her and Michael Humphreys were going to go and meet Ben, and they were going to shoot him.
And I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you for some reason today.
Her and Michael Humphreys, Lynlee and Michael Humphreys, were going to take a gun and go see Ben, and they said they were going to murder him.
And where did this conversation between you and Lynlee take place at?
At the spa.
And I mean, where at in the spa, if you recall?
Most of the time we were talking out front on the side where we park, kind of down from the front door.
And was anybody else present?
I'm sure Ashley was.
And when she told you she was getting Michael Humphrey, have you heard of this Michael Humphrey guy before this date?
Yes, one time.
And where was that at?
His car was broke down on the side of the road, so we went and jump-started it.
We've heard about that, but you were in that group, so you had met him, so to speak, that date.
Yes.
But then after that is when Lynlee tells you on June 8th that she and Michael were going to go kill him.
Yes.
And when you hear this, what is your reaction?
I was shocked.
Did you have any other conversations with Lynlee about her wanting to kill her husband on June 8th?
I think all the other conversations I had were with Ashley.
And with respect to June 8th, were you working that day?
Yes.
And what were you supposed to do at work that day if this was going to go on?
We were just supposed to have a normal day. We didn't have clients. We cleared our books for the day.
When you say you cleared your books, what does that mean?
We didn't book anything, any appointments.
And were you present when Lynlee left to go commit this crime?
Yes.
When she left, do you recall anything about how she was dressed or her appearance?
I honestly don't remember.
And when she left, did you and Ashley do something to protect yourself?
Yes.
What did you do?
We went to the bank, and then we went down to the corner store, convenience store, so that we'd be on camera.
And why did you want to be on camera?
We wanted to make sure that if anything happened, that they knew that we weren't with her.
And when you say with her, you mean Lynlee?
Yes.
And did you in fact do that?
Yes.
Do you remember about what time of day Lynlee left?
It seems like it was early afternoon, afternoonish.
And do you remember about how long she was gone?
It seems like it was a few hours.
And were you present when she returned?
Yes.
And you mentioned Michael Humphrey. Did you ever see him when she left and then when he returned?
No.
Let's tell the jury what happened when Lynlee returned to the spa.
When Lynlee returned, I was told to go to the back. Ashley told me to go back there because Michael didn't know that I knew anything about it. So I went to the back room, which was our break room, and the door was closed.
And well, first off, start with Lynlee. She comes back in. Where do you see her go, and what is she doing?
She goes to our wet room.
And do you know if she's carrying anything, or do you remember?
I don't know.
She goes to the wet room?
Yes.
And how is her demeanor when she arrives back at the spa?
Kind of, I guess, a little nervous, I guess, but worked up, I guess.
Do you speak with her?
No.
Okay. But Ashley tells you to do something, correct?
Yes.
What does Ashley tell you to do?
To go to the back room.
And so you go to the back room?
Yes.
And why did she tell you why you had to go to the back room?
Because Michael didn't know that I knew anything, and she didn't want him to see me there.
And so do you go to this room?
Yes.
And this is a room there's a door nobody can see in?
Right.
Do you close the door?
Yes.
While you're in there, are you able to hear voices or any other activity?
I heard voices, and I heard the shower or the water running in the wet room.
And when you heard voices back there, whose voices did you hear?
I heard Ashley's and Lynlee's, just because I was familiar with theirs, and then I heard a man's voice.
And when you say you heard their voices, could you discern or just tell what they were saying, or was it just a matter of you could hear their voices?
I could just hear their voices.
And you said you also heard a man's voice. When did you hear a man's voice?
At the same time, they were all in the shower room.
And how long did you hear this man enter, walking down the hall or anything, or did you just hear his voice?
I remember hearing his voice. That's all I remember.
Was his voice, was it speaking a lot or just a little bit?
A little bit.
And were you able to tell what that man was saying, or just?
No.
And was that man there when you came out of that room?
No, he was gone.
Now, did you ever speak with Lynlee again about this, her conspiracy to kill her husband after this had happened?
No.
You did speak to her about a fellow by the name of Brandon Blackwell, did you not?
Yes.
When did you first meet or see a guy named Brandon Blackwell?
It seems like it was shortly before Ben was murdered.
And how is it that you came into contact with him?
He came into the spa one day.
And was that spa for you to work on him or for Lynlee?
Lynlee.
And did you subsequently learn something about Lynlee and his involvement?
Yes.
What did you learn?
That they were together.
That they began a sexual relationship.
Right.
And after Ben's murder, do you recall Lynlee making a statement to you about Brandon Blackwell.
Yes.
And the statement I'm going to ask you about, do you remember when it was in relationship to the day of the murder? Are we talking days, weeks, or months?
Just days is what it seemed like.
So it was just a couple days later, a few days later?
Yes.
And what did she tell you about Brandon Blackwell within a couple days of her having murdered her husband?
That they were in love.
Judge, I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination.
Ms. Hunt, you don't have a criminal history, correct?
I don't.
You've never been convicted of a crime in your life, right?
No.
And you're not a violent person, right?
No.
Is that correct?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
You're not a violent person, is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And your job was what was it called?
I was an esthetician.
And what does an esthetician do?
Skincare services.
Okay, so you're not in a violent profession, right?
No.
And I think you said that you had never testified in a homicide investigation before, or been questioned in a homicide investigation. Is that true as well?
That's true.
And you never told the police a word about this until you were given an immunity deal, correct?
Right.
So you don't know anything. You don't know what's going on. You were questioned in the winter of 2018, is that correct?
Yes.
And what did you tell the police Lynlee's involvement was on that day?
I said that I didn't know anything.
Okay, and that was the truth, right?
No, that wasn't the truth.
But then, you tell the police that Lynlee was not involved, and then some time passes and you learn that Ashley Shaw has been given a proffer agreement that she has said Lynlee's guilty, and she calls you on the phone and tells you that very thing, correct?
Yes.
And so at that point, you and her have a conversation about what she told the police, correct?
No, we didn't.
Did you testify in a deposition on July 14th of 2020?
Yes.
Did you testify at that deposition that you talked to Ashley Shaw the day after she was arrested?
Yes.
So it wouldn't have come up in that conversation the day after Ashley Shaw got arrested what she told the police? Is that your testimony?
The only thing that she said was they knew everything, so to be honest.
That's all she said?
That's all she said.
That's it, nothing more?
That's it.
You weren't curious at all about what she said or anything like
No.
that? And she didn't ask you any questions, that was it?
That was it.
But then you get a proffer agreement, this identical proffer agreement as Ashley Shaw, correct?
I don't know what hers looks like, but I guess so.
Well, you get total immunity just like she does, right?
Yes.
And you're not charged with anything, correct?
Right.
What did the police tell you you were going to be charged with if you didn't take their proffer agreement?
They never said I'd be charged with anything.
So why did you need a proffer agreement then?
I never said anything about it. My attorney came up with it, and he had it before
Why wouldn't you just tell, if you didn't do anything wrong, then why wouldn't you just tell the police your statement? Why would you need an attorney at all?
Because I was advised to get one. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Who advised you to get an attorney?
A family member.
You were very good friends with Ashley Shaw, correct?
Yes.
You were in her wedding.
Yes.
You were a bridesmaid in her wedding.
Yes.
You posted her wedding photo on your, you made her wedding photo the cover of your Facebook page.
Yes.
You testified that her wedding was a very happy event.
Yes.
She let you stay rent-free at her property.
Yes.
And that's kind of what your testimony here today is all about, right? You
guess
helping out Ashley Shaw?
No, I'm not helping Ashley.
Do you remember the police asking you if there was any blood on Lynlee's clothes when she returned from the
Yes.
Do you know what you said?
I said I didn't know.
Are you sure?
I mean, that's what I remember.
Isn't that your deposition that you gave?
Yes.
Does that say that you didn't know if Lynlee had blood on her clothes?
I didn't see it.
Does it help refresh your recollection if you read what you said?
Ashley told me that Lynlee had blood on her clothes.
Can you repeat that, please?
Ashley told me that Lynlee had blood on her clothes.
Ashley told you that Lynlee had blood on her clothes, yes?
Yes.
Now, you were asked a lot of specific questions about what took place on the night of the murder on October the 7th of this year, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that a murder is a significant thing in a person's life, correct?
Yes.
It's the kind of thing that a person would remember. Correct?
Yes.
Do you remember how many times Lynlee and Ashley Shaw discussed the murder?
I don't.
Did you remember how long the conversations were?
No.
Did you remember the times of day they took place?
No.
Did you remember how many times Michael Humphrey came into the spa?
I think no.
Do you remember the date this alleged murder took place?
June 8th?
Did you remember that on October the 7th?
No.
What happened to the clothes that Lynlee was wearing that night?
Not exactly.
By not exactly, you mean you don't remember?
No.
Now, your attorney, when you met with him, Mr. Lynlee, is that correct?
Yes.
He showed you a police report, didn't he, on this case?
I think he did in the beginning.
Okay. Why would your attorney show you a police report in this case?
I don't know.
Is the answer so that you would know what to say to be consistent with Ashley Shaw so that you could keep your proffer agreement?
No.
Well, why would you need to see a police report? If you lived everything, why would you need to see a police report?
I don't even know what was in the police report. He just said that he had one.
He showed it to you?
I think that he pulled it out at some point, but it's not something that I looked over.
Did you ever receive anything from Lynlee Renick?
I don't know what you would be referring to.
Anything? Like any money or anything like that?
No.
Okay, so you did this as a favor to her. Keep quiet.
I guess, yeah.
I have no further questions.
Yes, ma'am, there are a lot of things there that Mr. Hessman just asked you about that you don't remember about this.
Right.
Okay. You do remember the conversation with Lynlee where she talked to you about what her plans were, correct?
Yes.
And she didn't get that. You do remember the conversation you had with Lynlee where she told you what her and Michael were going to do.
Yes.
And what did they tell you? What do you remember her telling you they were going to do?
They were going to go to the reptile facility and shoot Ben.
I don't have any other questions.
So you have one of those memories that only records things that are helpful to the state's case, correct?
No.
You're a special person. You have a brain that records things that helps Mr. Zollner and helps your proffer agreement, but you forget everything else. Is that how it works?
You've not asked me anything that I know.
No further questions.
I don't have any other questions.
May this witness be finally excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
We may recall her.
You're subject to recall, but you can step down right now, okay? Thank you so much. Call your next witness.
Michael Humphrey.
Okay?